Good morning. I'm Harley Schlanger from the LaRouche organization with your daily video update for May 19th, 2022. Well, I have some good news to start with today, and this is something that I'm sure will not come as such a big surprise, but truth has prevailed, at least for the moment, as the Department of Homeland Security has been forced to pause or put on hold the establishment of the Disinformation Governance Board. They announced that not only are they pausing this, but it was announced yesterday that the would-be director of this board, Nina Jankovic, has resigned and will not take over that position. Now, she is a leading spreader of disinformation and was at the heart of the opposition against the idea of setting up this board, but the board itself was correctly ridiculed as an agency of government censorship, derided as a ministry of truth, with a reference to the George Orwell 1984. And also the DHS working groups that were set up within it have been suspended. Now, the establishment of this board was met with widespread condemnation and criticism. And the more that was learned about Jankovic, the more the opposition grew, especially the public exposure of the false statements that she had spread, showing that the so-called expert on disinformation was an expert on spreading disinformation. Among the stories she promoted was that the Hunter Biden laptop expose was a, quote, Trump campaign production, unquote. And even though now the New York Times and the Washington Post have said that's false, it was not a fake story, she hasn't said anything about it. She hasn't corrected herself or anything. She also was involved in spreading the story of the so-called Trump collusion with a Russian bank, the Alpha Bank, which has not only been discredited, but is now one of the subjects of an ongoing trial in Washington, D.C. of Clinton campaign attorney Sussman, who lied to the FBI about who was paying him when he was trying to get them to investigate that story of the Trump Alpha Bank connection. So you have these kinds of false stories that were being promoted by someone who's supposed to be the watchdog of disinformation. Now, her credibility had become less than zero. But there's a bigger story here that must come out. And that is the story of who Jankovic was working for. She was a Fulbright Fellow when she went to Kiev in Ukraine in 2016 and 2017, where she was working with the Ukrainian Foreign Ministry to, quote, counter Russian disinformation, unquote. At the time, she was working as an operative of the National Democratic Institute, but more importantly, she was working as an influencer with something called the Integrity Initiative, which is a British Foreign Office agency designed to spread disinformation. So she was an operative for British intelligence in Ukraine. Now, who was she working with in Ukraine in the Foreign Ministry? She was working with a Facebook-connected Ukraine fact-checking website called Stop Fake. Now, Stop Fake was set up in March 2014, just weeks after the February 2014 Color Revolution coup, funded by the U.S. State Department, by George Soros, by the National Endowment for Democracy, which, by the way, is the parent of the National Democratic Institute that she was working for. In any case, Stop Fake was set up just after the Maidan coup in order to push the fake news that charges that there were Nazis involved in the Maidan coup was Russian disinformation. So when she went to work in Ukraine, she was working with the very neo-Nazi networks of the Azov Battalion that denied that they were connected to Nazis. And she said in several different posts that they may have been far right, but they were not Nazis. Now, I think the plug was pulled on her and this agency, at least in the short term, to protect the lies of the State Department and other defenders of arming the Ukrainians, that there are no Nazis in Ukraine, and that Putin is lying when he says that the goal of the special military operations launched on February 24th was to denazify Ukraine. The fact that she worked with Nazis to deny that there are Nazis in itself shows the absolute fraudulent hypocrisy of the Biden administration in putting this person forward as the watchdog against disinformation. But more importantly, it shows something profoundly troubling about the continuing policy of the Biden administration, with support from both parties in the Congress, to send millions of dollars, billions of dollars, I should say, $40 billion more arms and equipment to Ukraine, to the army of Ukraine, with some of those weapons falling into the hands of militias that are neo-Nazis, the Azov Battalion and others, who are openly proponents of Hitler's race theory against the Russians, describing the Russians as Untermenschen. Nina Jankowicz never said anything about that, did she? In fact, she denied that that was going on. Now, this points to another problem that has to be addressed of the deeper truth. How is it we can spend billions of dollars to put arms into a war which threatens to go into a world war, but we don't have money for infrastructure in the United States? We don't have money for education. We don't even have money for baby formula. We don't have funds for farmers who are being hit by higher fuel and fertilizer prices at a moment when there's an international food shortage. We don't have money to help truckers who can't afford to pay for diesel fuel anymore. So who's making these decisions? And this gets to the deeper issue. The commitment to the war in Ukraine is a defense of the unipolar order, which is collapsing. A unipolar order which defends the idea of neoliberal economics, of a speculative economy in the hands of people like BlackRock, like City of London banks, like the Wall Street banks that are the ones who control the distribution of credit, namely JP Morgan Chase, Bank of America, Citibank, Goldman Sachs. Those are four banks that are among the owners of the New York Federal Reserve, that generated over $20 trillion since September of 2019 to go to their own banks as bailouts. So these are the institutions that are being protected by the Great Reset and the need to go to war with Russia. And why? Because the Russians and the Chinese in particular, but also a growing number of countries in the global south, are objecting to giving up their sovereignty so that these banks can be bailed out based on looting of the poorer countries and now increasingly looting the life savings of citizens of the United States and Western Europe. So this temporary setback to the Ministry of Truth is a small victory, but an important one, because it shows that when citizens stand up for deeper truth, you can win the fight. And now we've got to extend this to the battle to take power away from the oligarchs who use institutions such as the Federal Reserve to protect their private banking and financial institutions and their personal fortunes at the expense of the physical economy, which is necessary to feed and for the living of normal Americans and people in Western Europe. So we have to stand for the actual truth. That means you have to know the truth and you have to have the courage to fight for it. In this case, people did, and we have at least a short-term victory. Now, the Schiller Institute is sponsoring an event on May 26th, where we'll get to the deeper issues of the war and the danger that this could become World War III. Among the speakers will be Helga Zepp-LaRouche, Ray McGovern, a longtime CIA operative and member of the Veterans Professionals for Truth, for Sanity, Veteran Intelligence Professionals for Sanity, and also Colonel Richard Black, the former director of the civil law in the military in the JAG Corps at the Pentagon. There'll be 3 of the speakers. I urge you to use the registration form that I'm going to link at the bottom of today's description to sign up for that event. Now, tomorrow's Friday. I'll take some questions. I'll do a wrap-up of some of the leading issues, including the economic crisis. But if you have some important questions, send them to me at harleysch@gmail.com. And take a moment to spread the word to your friends and others who think you can't win these fights, that at least for the moment, we delivered a very prominent black eye to the liars in the Biden administration who were trying to push for a new censorship agency.